Welcome to Bible Study Old and New Testament Made Clear. Has the Bible been difficult to understand? Not anymore. And here's your host, Rico White.
Hey, how's everybody doing? My name is Brico, and I'm here today to talk about a Bible scripture. And we're going to look at the book of Deuteronomy. Deuteronomy chapter 24. And we're going to look at it's going to be chapter 23. That is Deuteronomy chapter 23. And it's going to be verse 9 through verse 14. Verse 9 through verse 14. And this scripture is going to be discussing and focusing on uncleanness in the camp. And what we're going to do is that we're going to refer to uncleanness as to negative speech. And so this negative speech can come from within or it can come from without, outside of you or inside of you. It could be coming from a person or individual, or it could be coming from inside of you as far as negativity that you might be hearing on the inside. And this scripture gives us a good picture, or it can paint a good picture on how to handle such negative thinking or negative speech. And so we can read starting in verse 9. It says, "When you are encamped against your enemies, keep away from everything impure." So when we are under attack, or when we have negative speech coming in, right? When we are encamped or when we are surrounded by our enemies, it says that we ought to keep away from everything impure, right? So that basically we don't want to surround ourselves by anything negative. We want to surround ourselves by everything positive, which is sometimes the opposite of what we might feel like we want to do. Sometimes we want to be isolated, or we want to be by ourselves. But when we are encamped with this negative speech, it is very important to not be around anything impure or things that are not clean. Basically, you want to be around a lot of real love, a lot of people or things that you can be around where you can feel loved and you can feel cherished. And so, another thing is that you don't want anything to make you feel impure, because we are very pure individuals, and sometimes being encamped around negative thoughts can make us feel impure. But we want to keep everything right, from keep away from everything impure thoughts, impure things going on, just so that we can have a very positive energy. And it says if, right? This is if is a condition, right? If one of your men is unclean because of nocturnal emissions. Nocturnal means something done at night, right? So if a man is unclean, which means impure, right? Because of something that was done at night, he released something. It was an emission, released something into the atmosphere. He is to go outside the camp and stay there. So again, we're not supposed to be around any people who might be impure. So let's say we're having a lot of negative things, and we might have a visitor that we might know that might be negative. They might need to stay on the outside of the camp, because we need positivity. We need all the positive things that we can on the inside, and keep things impure on the outside. And it might be people that we cannot be around so that we can maybe have a healing, or it might be certain talk that we cannot be around. But we are very for certain that We're talking about a body of individuals. And it was very important to keep everything pure in the camp. And it was that much important that if somebody was not behaving maybe in a loving manner, to put that individual on the outside of the camp just so that it wouldn't have it wouldn't affect and start bleeding in to the community and affecting everybody. And so we can see that's really how strong and how powerful negative speech is, that one person can cause a spark that can damage a whole community. And just like in the physical, it's the same in the spiritual. If we are trying to be positive and if things are going on, we're ready for battle, we cannot flood ourselves with negativity, because now we're allowing something impure inside the camp, which is something opposite of what the scripture tells us to do. And it says, and he is to go outside the camp and stay there. But as evening approaches, he is to wash himself. So basically, as the sun goes down, because it's coming to the end of the day, he must wash himself. And sometimes I think that's when our healing comes, is when we can see the sun go down, when we know it's toward the end of the day, it's the last day. And this is where I think that the last day comes from, because the sun is setting, and it's kind of also like the Passover. The sun is setting, the nighttime is coming, and then the sun will rise the next day. And so the next day is a new day. It's new life. So every day is a new day. Every day deserves new life, a new beginning. And so even with the negativeness is supposed to be outside the camp. But when the sun sets and the sun rises, then, so basically when your spirits get lifted up, right? Then it says that, and as the sun sets, he may return to the camp. So as the sun sets, as it gets dark, the person who was negative can return to the camp, because I guess there might have been a change in something. And so we can keep in mind that you don't always have to have somebody away all the time, but you do need them away long enough so that you can heal, or that you can fight, or, win the war. And so we're going to read starting in verse 12, and it's the same thing. It's kind of telling you the same thing, basically keeping something that is negative outside, just so it doesn't have a it doesn't affect your purpose in life and where you're going. It says designate a place outside the camp. Again, just like this man was supposed to go outside the camp, it says designate a place right outside the camp where you can go to relieve yourself, right? So that you can relieve yourself as part of your equipment, something to dig with. So for you to relieve yourself or have something to dig with, because sometimes when there is when we need to relieve ourselves, when something is going on in our lives, and we might have something negative that might need to be released, but we don't want it to affect everybody, right? We don't want it to bother everybody. So there's also a way to handle that situation. If you have a situation that you got going on and you don't want it to affect everybody in the camp, or if you don't want to affect the body, here's the way to do that: is you got to have something to dig with, so there's work involved. So either way, you got to either put the man out, you got to have a digging tool, you got to have a place prepared. There's work involved in getting out of these situations mentally, and we have to keep all these things in mind. And so to dig with, and when you relieve yourself, right? When this happens, when you relieve yourself, it says, go dig, and when you relieve yourself, dig a hole and cover up your excrement, right? So we're supposed to cover up, right, something that was done at night. And it says excrement, we're going to use night soil. So to cover up your night soil. And that's another thing too. We need to cover up those things. Sometimes, people want to expose things. A lot of times there's a story in the Bible about it was Noah and his sons. And the ones that did what they were supposed to do covered up their father's nakedness. And you might say that covered up his night soil. And maybe that is what we need to do as far as with ourselves and also with others. We need to dig a hole and we need to bury, right, the night soil so that it cannot be seen. It's up under the earth. And basically, that's kind of like hell, I guess you might say, because it's beneath the earth. But we need to dig it and bury it so that it's not seen. And we can see it says, for the Lord your God moves about in your camp. And we talk about the camp, or we talk about the garden, and we're talking about this body that we're living in, where the Spirit dwells in. And it says that for the Lord your God moves about in your camp. So know that your spirit is always having an inspection, whether you want to believe that it's having an inspection or not. Something is definitely going on. And that's the reason why you might either feel good about yourself, bad about yourself, is because without you knowing it, there's an inspection going on. The Lord is moving about inside of you. And it says that to protect you and to deliver you, deliver your enemies to you. Your camp must be holy, meaning that it must be free of any negative or uncleanness in order for you to have breakthrough and go to the next level. And so, again, with this negative speech, we just want to make sure that it's outside the camp so that we can have victory and so that we can win. Because if you have the enemy in and on the outside of the camp, then I'm pretty sure you're setting yourself up for destruction. And it says, so that he will not see among you anything indecent and turn away from you. So what it is that if you feel like maybe God might be turning away from you, it's because maybe you have something unholy, you have some negative speech within you that is keeping him from having a relationship with you and having this personal relationship. And so this is just something to think about. Hope that you benefited from this. And again, this is about negative speech, keeping it on the outside. But again, it's a new day the next day. We're whole again. There's nobody on the outside of the camp. We're all together as a family, and we do it all over again. And so every day we have to do an inspection to make sure that there's nothing unclean that we have to take care of, so that the enemy doesn't have an advantage or a foothold by having somebody on the inside that can kill everybody while he's encamped on the outside. And so today, again, thank you. This was Deuteronomy. It was chapter 23. Thank you for your time, and enjoy yourself.